North Dakota will play host to one of the nation's most watched Senate races in this year's midterm elections. But voters will first have to decide who will face off against Democratic incumbent Senator Heidi Heitkamp. She's facing two GOP challengers, including Congressman Kevin Cramer. Dale Wetzel is a longtime former Associated Press state capitol reporter. He joins us now from Bismarck, North Dakota. Thanks for joining us. Both major Senate candidates have emphasized their strong relationship with President Trump. How will that Trump factor play into this race, Dale?
Well, it's something that both of them have to consider because President Trump carried 63% of the vote in North Dakota compared to Hillary Clinton's 27%. And it's fair to say he still remains quite popular. And it is interesting to see a Republican Senate incumbent and a Democratic Senate incumbent and a Republican challenger essentially competing for the throne of who is President Trump's favorite. I mean, Senator Heitkamp talks about flattering remarks that President Trump has made, referring to her, says she's a good woman, and the vice president has also spoken favorably of her. Also, during the transition before President Trump became president, he spoke to Senator Heitkamp about a possible cabinet appointment. Now, for the Republican side, Kevin Cramer has emphasized his early endorsement of President Trump when it didn't look like he would even win the Republican nomination. And he's expressed very strong support for President Trump's tax cut package, his wish to roll back the federal regulatory state and other things. There are some differences. I mean, I think it's fair to say that Kevin Cramer is a bit nervous about President Trump's habit of imposing tariffs on imported goods because North Dakota is a very export-reliant state. But all in all, Kevin Cramer, the Republican Senate candidate, is a very strong Trump supporter.
Dale, during her time as senator, Heidi Heitkamp did not oppose the Dakota Access Pipeline. That angered a handful of Native American voters in the state. Do you expect that to come back and haunt her come November's election?
Well, it certainly could, because Heidi Heitkamp, 6 years ago, she only won her seat by less than 3,000 votes. And you can certainly argue that the Native American vote carried her over the top. The Standing Rock Sioux Indian Reservation, which is where the Dakota Access Pipeline demonstrations happened, Sioux County, which is where the reservation is located, it went for her 83%. She got 83% of the vote in that county. Now, when you talk to some folks down there, and there was also an Associated Press story about this recently, some of the voters on the Standing Rock Sioux Reservation in particular are disillusioned with Senator Heitkamp's failure to support them in their demonstrations against the Dakota Access Pipeline. And some of them, and it remains to be seen how many, are going to sit out the election as a result. They won't vote for Kevin Cramer, the Republican, but they will not vote for Heidi Heitkamp either, and they won't work for her. And it'll be interesting to see how this affects the result of the election.
I found this interesting. The Koch brothers political network launched a digital ad blitz thanking Heidi Heitkamp on Friday. How significant is that?
Well, it makes people's heads explode. I don't know how significant it is politically. I suspect not very significant, because you are not going to have progressive Democrats who are supporting Heidi Heitkamp say, oh, great, it's fantastic that the Koch brothers are supporting Heidi Heitkamp. But at the same time, it causes some consternation among Republican voters. They're used to seeing support from the Koch brothers for their issues. And what the Koch brothers were doing through their Americans for Prosperity organization, they were praising Heidi Heitkamp for her support of a bank deregulation bill. She's on the banking committee. But on the other hand, they have also criticized her for her failure to vote for the Trump tax package. And so this sort of back and forth, it's odd and somewhat amusing. its overall impact, I think, will be fairly minimal.
Meanwhile, Democrats across the nation are looking to pick up seats in order to take control of the House in November. Does that look like a possibility in North Dakota?
Not really. Both of the candidates for the House, the Republican Kelly Armstrong and the Democrat Max Schneider, they have not run statewide campaigns before, but Kelly Armstrong, it's fair to say, has a pretty good head start on Max Schneider in the race. And it appears, frankly, that he's more active in campaigning and fundraising, doing that sort of thing so far. And it will be difficult for the Democrats to pick up this seat, even though it should be mentioned that Max Schneider is from Fargo, North Dakota, which is by far the biggest city in North Dakota. He is, based where most of the North Dakota voters are. Kelly Armstrong is from Dickinson, North Dakota, which is in the southwest, the more lightly populated western part of North Dakota. But I think that, frankly, Democrats nationally are not counting on North Dakota as a place to pick up a House seat.
All right. And before we let you go, Dale, North Dakota is the only state in the nation without voter registration, which seems pretty incredible. What do people there think about that in wake of the 2016 presidential election?
People in North Dakota, I think it's correct to say, like the fact that there is no voter registration. It isn't as if there's no security at all. You go to the polls, you present an identification, the poll worker looks to see if you've voted before, and if you have, generally you can vote. There's very little bureaucracy involved. One of the changes this year is that if you do not have a identification card of some kind or some sort of a way to identify yourself as living in your district, you will be allowed to cast a provisional vote, which means that your vote will be set aside and later on you're going to have to prove that you are who you say you are. Otherwise, your vote won't be counted. That hasn't happened in North Dakota before, and it frankly irks some Democrats in particular in North Dakota who think essentially they think of the voter fraud argument that is advanced by Republicans as a way to suppress votes that are sympathetic to them. But it's fair to say that North Dakota's lack of voter registration is a point of pride. I mean, most people don't think, well, it should be regulated more strictly. They think it's regulated too strictly. They don't like the identification requirements. It's quite fascinating.
All right, Dale Wetzel, thank you so much.
Thank you.